A perfect blend between Rio Ferdinand and Raphael Varane, or a roided version of Anton Ferdinand? Just how good is Leny Yoro? Now, before we start today's video, just a reminder that because this is a player from the French league, we might have copyright issues, and therefore you're probably going to see more of my face rather than the actual clips. But lo and behold, there'll be plenty of stats to work with, and I'll try and introduce as many clips as I can through the video. Enjoy. He doesn't make an overwhelming number of defensive actions per game, so he's actually a more conservative and less proactive defender than someone like Raphael. He tends to stay within the backline, a bit like a Van Dijk really, even at a young age, but he plays more of a sweeping role rather than aggressively stepping out to challenge attackers. Good duel success rate, around 70%, which is impressive for his age. It's not exceptional because there's other young defenders who've got that amount, but indicates competence at this moment in time. Like I said, his biggest strength for me is his ability to read the game, make crucial interceptions. For me, this is his biggest asset as a defender. He's got a real knack for anticipating passes, quickly reacting to cut them off. He kind of pretends like he's dropping back and then he swiftly just sort of sticks a leg forward, intercepts passes. So he's got a high level of football intelligence and situational awareness. What I also like about him is that even though when he's intercepting, it's followed by a composed first touch or intelligent distribution. He's got this ability to not only intercept, but he retains and progresses possession whilst he's intercepting. And that comfort for me is a trait that you only really see in the most elegant and effective defenders. So he's got the ability to almost play around with his defending and still defend. So that's quite unique at this young age, and that's a unique selling point in his favour. In terms of Yoro's ball winning, he tends to go to ground quite often. Doesn't commit that many fouls. His tackling style is somewhat balanced. It's not overly aggressive, but it's not overly conservative. In terms of his one-on-one defending, I think he's pretty vulnerable. He's someone who tends to commit in a certain direction during the tackle, and attackers can exploit this by quickly changing direction, and it leaves him off balance, out of position. His ability to react to quick changes of direction is an area for me that needs improvement. Having said that, his positional awareness, his defensive IQ, it's okay. He's got the pace to recover, but his ability to read the attacker's movements yet isn't at an elite level. I can't imagine him taking on a Lionel Messi at this moment in time. And you might say, well, he's a young kid, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, obviously, you're looking for that potential to be a top defender. And right now, I think his one-on-one defending is definitely an area of weakness, I'd say. He is tenacious. He's physically strong. So I think if he's in a shoulder-to-shoulder type of situation where someone's trying to take him down the line, as long as they're not cutting in and it's a straight shoulder race, he's going to be pretty good. He's quite strong. He's fast. And his slide tackle in those situations is pretty good. Generally, his slide tackles are impactful. When he commits to a tackle, he comes away with the ball, generally. And he's got good timing and execution in his tackling technique. In terms of Yoro's dribbling ability, it's an intriguing aspect of his game. Okay, the success rate is 55%. It's not remarkable, but the potential for growth in this area is pretty significant. Now, before we sort of break it down, it reminds me a little bit of Rio Ferdinand at a young age before he went to United. And Glenn Hoddle spoke about how when Rio Ferdinand, as a youngster, he was so gifted in terms of his ball carrying, but it kind of got coached out of him when he moved to United. And this is something I fear for Yoro because, you know, at the moment, he's not frequently progressing the ball through dribbling, which is surprising because he's very comfortable with the ball at his feet and he's definitely got an ability to handle pressure. He's comfortable, he's agile when dribbling, he's got fast feet, he can change direction quickly. Definitely in terms of pure dribbling, one of the best ball-playing talents of his generation. And I can say that with ease, even at this tender age. Very press-resistant, composed when opponents are coming quickly. The balance, the twisting, the turning, shielding the ball. He's incredibly comfortable with that ball coming over. However, he takes a lot of risks. And this is where I associate him with a young Rio. This fearlessness with the ball, it leads to mistakes. And the problem is, I think if it's nurtured, it could become a real weapon. But if you've got a coach who's quite pragmatic, scared of giving him the platform to really express himself with the ball carrying, it could be coached out of his game, and that would be a real shame because it'd make him a more boring type of prospect. So for me, I really hope that, whoever he goes to, they give him that freedom to express his dribbling and not worry so much about the mistakes, because this could be a real big, unique selling point of his game. Just comparing it to Saliba, someone who is increasingly becoming a bit more confident with his dribbling. I actually think Yoro's dribbling is superior than a Saliba. He's a lot more naturally talented with the ball at his feet, just in terms of the pure dribbling aspect. But Saliba now has got that confidence and that aura now to try things out in the bigger games, and we're beginning to see it more and more. So the question mark is, will Yoro have that same confidence going forward for the rest of his career? If he does, then you'd expect a more higher ceiling with his dribbling. So we'll see how that pans out. In terms of Yoro's possession game, obviously he's got a high accuracy percentage, but I'd say when he's trying to progress the game, for me overall he lacks the penetration and inventiveness that I would require or expect from a top ball playing talent. I think his passing between the lines compared to a Kubasi, it's not as impressive. So he's reliable, but his style is a bit safe, it's a bit conservative. It leaves something to be desired. So for me, that's something I really want to see more from him. In terms of his passing between the lines, let's just say into a centre forward's feet, it's not that bad. It's okay. It's not groundbreaking, but it's solid. It's more about when he's trying to play the pass into space, open up defenses from a deeper area, which you expect from the great top ball playing centre-back type of players, like a Laporte, for example. He hasn't quite got that in his locker just yet. He doesn't make enough progressive passes into the final third. His passing doesn't consistently open up or create goal-scoring opportunities. Whilst at times he does show vision in terms of spotting runs and attempting passes over the top, the execution is clumsy. It lacks precision, subtlety of top-tier playmakers. So at the moment, it's still raw and underdeveloped. On the positive side, his first touch passing at times and his use of the instep to play balls into the channels, it does show potential. So he's got the ability to make quick decisions, and obviously he is able to sort of play 1-2s and break out from defense. He's press resistant, so he distributes the ball very effectively from deep positions inside his own half. So he's going to be tailor-made in terms of modern football. Like, pressing him is going to be difficult, especially because of his dribbling ability and his safety in terms of how he uses the short pass. It's just about how much can he push his game further in terms of advancing into the opponent's half and really utilizing his passing in that respect. In terms of Yoro's aerial ability, he's got 64% success rate in aerial duels. He's shown some goal threat in the air, but he doesn't really engage in many aerial duels. So are these stats inflated? I think inside the box, he's got notable presence during set pieces. He's got a good sense of where the ball's going to land. He can get a solid connection on his headers. He's also got that ability to know how to redirect his header. Like, sometimes he bounces his header before it reaches goal, but it's cleverly done to create confusion with the goalkeeper. So I think the fact that he's got that so young, I think with time that could become, an even bigger threat on goal. In terms of his aerial duels, let's just say from goal kicks, like I said, his involvement is relatively limited. What I would say is that at times he can look quite strong in the air, but at times when he's going up for the leap, so I wouldn't say courage is an issue. It's just that sometimes there's a naivety there. So he goes in for the header, the player below him can sort of like muscle him out of the way, and then he misses the header completely. And this obviously can be quite dangerous, because once you've let that ball bounce, it puts your other defender under pressure. So this is something, especially if he's coming into the English league, that needs to be ironed out quite quickly. Or there needs to be a lot of patience given to him to develop that part of his game, because he's not going to be a ready-made aerial monster at this stage of his career. He just hasn't quite got that yet. He has got decent size, but I think he's a bit naive in terms of how he goes about his aerial defensive work. The other issue Yoro has is that inside the box, and we'll touch upon this in terms of his general positional play, which is quite good. It's just when it comes to aerial situations, at times he can be caught flat-footed. He doesn't really anticipate the movement of people coming across him quickly enough, and that can leave him vulnerable in terms of them getting a header at the near post, and that leaves him sort of, just ball watching at that moment. So that's something he needs to be a bit more reactive when the ball's coming in the air, especially in aerial situations. overall, I'd say there's potential here for him to develop into a more formidable aerial presence. Needs to obviously refine his heading technique, his judgment of where the ball's going to be, and his awareness inside the box. In terms of Leny Yoro's long passing, statistically, he averages around 60% success rate on his long passes, makes about 4.51 passes per game, but his average pass length is only 18.9. So he's a player who tends to want to play it short, although he's got a long passing in his locker. I think in terms of technically, he's quite sound, but he's still developing in terms of his consistency, in terms of his decision making. At times, his down the line passes, for me, they lack accuracy. So this means that he needs to refine his judgment as to when to attempt these passes. In terms of his switches of play, I think when it's out to the right hand side and he's using a bit of curl to play out to the right back, it's not that bad. I think the problem is more when he's playing that switch out to the left side if he's playing as a right centre back. Some of these switches of play can be a bit loopy, can be a bit behind the left back, so the left back isn't really able to take it in terms of his stride. So I think that's something that he needs to work on with his long passing. The other issue I think Yoro has is that at the moment he's a bit indisciplined in terms of when to use the long pass. At times he hurriedly hoofs the ball into space. I think perhaps he thinks he's going to sort of first time pass it and progress the game, but there's no player there sometimes and he's just hitting it straight into space and it leads to a loss of possession. If he's going to a bigger team, that element of his game, it needs a bit more discipline. I'd probably advise him to spend less time hitting first time sort of long passes, which can be quite risky to pull off. Take a touch first before he plays it. And I think his accuracy would increase at this moment in time in terms of this stage of his career. For me, overall, his technical fundamentals are sound. I just think he needs more experience, needs a bit more discipline and higher level of IQ as to when to execute long passes. For me, at the moment, someone like Kubasi is a much better natural long passer than Yoro at this moment in their career. Tactically, Yoro is best suited to playing as a centre-back. Now, some might speculate whether this is a player that could play as a central defensive midfielder due to his technical skills. But I would argue that, yeah, his dribbling, he's got great feet for a centre-back, but he takes a lot of risks with the ball, whereas you want a real high level of comfort, low level of risk when you're playing at that CDM position. Guys like Busquets, they never look in danger of losing the ball. You can't say the same about a Yoro. Also, his passing game, it's not progressive enough to play as a midfielder. So for me, centre-back is 100% the role that he's probably going to play for the rest of his career. In terms of his style of play, I think he's a bit like a Varane and a latter-day Rio Ferdinand in terms of, I don't think his passing game is necessarily going to be that progressive or game-changing. I think his dribbling is probably the most progressive aspect. I think he can play quick 1-2s, drive with the ball further, and that's probably that Lucio-type ability to break from deep. That's going to be quite a unique tactical weapon that he brings to the table. But I think his passing game would generally be a bit more sort of sensible, safe, relatively conservative. I don't think that part of his game will be that groundbreaking at this tender age. Perhaps as he grows more confident, he'll express himself a bit more with the ball. His passing can probably kick up a notch. But during his younger age, I think the thing that will be more eye-catching will probably be his dribbling part of his game. The other thing I would say is that in terms of his ability to man mark, I don't think he's ideally suited for man marking type roles due to his limitations in one-on-one situations. So he's not someone I'd want to get up against like a Nicholas Jackson, someone who can really dribble and run at him. I think although he's got the pace to keep up with the Nicholas Jackson, I think the quick changes of direction could hurt Yoro at this moment in time. So he's someone I'd like to sweep more. So get someone up against that type of player and let Yoro be the more positional defender. I think that would make more sense based on his skill set at this moment in time. In terms of him bringing that ability for a team to defend with a high line, absolutely. You know, he's got that recovery pace. He's a young lad who can definitely cover the pitch quite well. So definitely he is an improvement in terms of allowing teams to play with a high line. He's not going to be uncomfortable recovering large acres of space. So in that sense, quite similar to a William Saliba of Arsenal. In conclusion, Yoro is a promising young centre-back with notable attributes, but a lot of room for growth. In terms of strengths, I think he's gifted with the ball at his feet. He shows comfort and composure under pressure. The dribbling is a standout trait. I think it's really at an elite level already. So he just needs to refine his decision-making with it. Interceptions, good at reading the game, good at making crucial interceptions, has that innatural ability to anticipate, disrupt opposition plays. Again, the positive is there's room for growth across a variety of attributes. So it's not something that you would say, oh, he's a liability in this respect. It can't improve. You can't really say that about Yoro. In terms of his one-on-one defending, I think he needs to improve on his ability to change direction against fast, quick, agile attackers. His distribution, it's sensible, it's safe, but he needs to become a bit more progressive, a bit more risk-taking, but in a controlled manner to take his game to the next level. Aerial ability is generally good for his age. Good goal threat, but needs to become a bit more dominant and less naive from goal kick type situations. I don't think he's someone who should be a first team regular for a team pushing for major titles right now. He needs regular game time to iron out the kinks in his game. I think with the right development path, with consistent game time, he could mature into a well-rounded centre-back by the age of 24, 25. I think his trajectory needs to follow a similar path to a Saliba, who almost needed time away from his parent club to make a significant impact. I don't know, if he goes to Real Madrid, for example, I don't know if he's ready to handle that size of move right now. He needs that game time. He can't just be on the bench and progress. Don't see that working for him. If he goes to United, as long as expectations are low in the short term and he's allowed to work out his inconsistencies in his game, it could be smart business. The reported fee, I think Real Madrid's £20 million seems a bit like a bargain bucket based on how he could potentially grow. I think United's 60 million. It's a bit risky because obviously he's talented, but he's quite raw as well. So that could be overpaid. I think his value would somewhere in the region of 40 million would make a bit more sense because of his potential upside based on the current market as well. That's where I'd sort of value him. 35 million would be absolutely bang on for me in terms of his value. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and see you guys again next time. Bye.
For Guardiola, joy for Marie.